Welcome to PR After Hours, your twice weekly cocktail of business, PR, and marketing tips hosted by me, Alex Greenwood. Every week, we bring you virtual happy hours featuring business advice from entrepreneurs and leading thinkers in PR, marketing, and business. We're going to get started in just a moment, so stick with us.
Hello, my name is Swire Ho, hashtag the promo guy from Garuda Promo. You're listening to PR After Hours with Alex Greenwood.
Well, you know, one of the toughest things about working in PR and one of the toughest things about hiring a PR firm is the process of successfully pitching a story to the news media. And, you know, it's a lot more complex, I think, than most people understand, even if you're in the business. In fact, one of the things I've learned after 27 years in the business is that certain people are a lot better at it than others, and certain people have really kind of cracked the code on how to make a good pitch and connect with the right people to get the client where they need to be. So if you're a PR person, get ready for some secret sauce. If you're a business person, we're going to give you a little insight into what it's all about and what we're actually doing when we're trying to pitch you to the news media. And that's why I'm very excited to welcome Brittany Bearden to the show. She's been in PR for more than 10 years. She's one of the co-founders of At Large PR. She's written about PR for Entrepreneur, Business to Community, and CEO Magazine. Her clients have appeared on the Ellen DeGeneres Show, the New York Times, USA Today, Forbes, Business Insider, and many others. Wow, I wish I could say that. Hey, Brittany, welcome to the Virtual Lounge.
You.
Wow, so you've managed to get into the holy grail there of your clients in the media relations game.
Yes,
pretty exciting.
I have over the years.
Well, let me ask you just in general then. You've been in the business for 10 years or so, and is the media pitching side of it and the media relations side of it, is that your favorite part of what you do?
That's my favorite part of what I do. It's the part where I see the most success, and I think that it's the most valuable part of what I do.
Okay, well then here we go. I've been doing this a little longer than you, and it's not my favorite part.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. I gravitate more towards the strategic, creating an overall strategy, which of course media relations is almost always a serious part of it. But I found that I'm a former reporter and all that stuff back in the day. I've just found though that maintaining the relationships is tough for me over a long period, probably because I'm a small outfit anyway. And
right.
So that's part of it for me. The toughness is maintaining those relationships, particularly when we're in an age when newsrooms are just dwindling and dropping like flies, and it's this crazy attrition and there's people changing. So that's just part of it that I just like, oh, that's so much work to keep up with that. But I suppose if this is your primary focus and, you know, a huge part of your job is just consistently maintaining those relationships, it's a lot more fun.
Well, to tell you the truth, a lot of my services aren't based on maintaining relationships because I offer a one-time press release where I put the client as the contact on the release. So I craft the pitch based on what I think will work from my years of experience, put it together, and I send out the pitch. But I honestly found that if they like the story, they take it no matter who it comes from. And if they don't like it, they don't take it no matter who it comes from. Because I would take journalists to lunch and they would say, oh, which clients do you have that I can disappoint today? Like,
that's so true. That's true. But I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think though, there's still something you're doing. You must write incredible subject lines too to even get your pitches opened, right?
Yes. I think a subject line is a big part of getting your pitch opened. And I think that one of the keys is being crystal clear in the subject line about what the email is going to be about.
Okay, well let's get into that. So you draft several, or do they usually come to you pretty quickly now that you've been doing this so well and for so long, or do you really?
I basically have a formula for them.
Do tell.
I usually just draft the one. So in every pitch, I offer something. So I don't like to send a press release without a pitch cover letter.
Oh yeah.
Offering something. It can be guest pieces on a topic the client's an expert in. It can be a review sample of a product, a review copy of a book, or something as basic as an interview with a client who's an expert on a topic. And so I make it clear in the subject line, guest piece or interview with psychotherapist about psychological impact of the COVID holidays, or, review sample of vegan friendly beauty products, or just really clear what the email is going to be about. So they're pressed for time.
Mm-hmm.
They can decide based on the subject line if they even want to open it or not.
Yeah, you're basically pitching right there in the subject line then. That's the initial pitch right there. And
Right.
then if you can break through there and get them to actually open it, then you've got your detailed pitch, right?
Right.
Do you when you do that pitch, do you kind of include, like you said, a pitch cover? Like what I typically do, I try to write a good subject line, and I get a good open rate. I'll admit that. I just don't always deliver as well on getting the story, fully there. But do you? What I typically do is I'll write my pitch. I'll get the subject line, like you say. And I probably could do more detail in the subject line. You just taught me something there. I'm going to try that a little bit. But I'll write my pitch, and I keep that pretty short. I keep it pretty bullet pointed. I don't want to waste their time. And then I'll just say, if you want detailed information, I pasted the presser below my signature, and I figure that way. Is that cool?
Exactly what I do.
Yes. Okay. Well, but yet I'm not on the Ellen show. Okay. No. Let me.
That was a special case. It was a client that created custom oil portraits. And they created a custom oil portrait of Ellen and sent it to Ellen.
Ah, nice.
So it wasn't just off of a pitch.
Right. Well, it's funny. I'm always asking reporters and producers. I typically do about a monthly, every other month or something like that, appearance on a local TV station to talk about social media and stuff like that. And I always ask the producer, they always say, just pitch me whatever you got. And I mean, half the time that I know that I even open them, but I'm like, and they know me, right?
Right.
But I always ask them, I said, look, I'm not here to, bust your chops or anything, but was my pitch just terrible or whatever? And of course they can't even recall seeing it because they see so many every day, right?
Right.
So I have to disabuse myself of the notion that I'm special just because I'm on TV every once in a while with them. They're like, dude, you're plugging up a hole in our show. That's all you're doing. Don't get too impressed with yourself. But I think I have to manage those expectations though with my clients who see me on TV and go, that guy's plugged in, because I've actually had them say, well, everybody at Channel 5, come on now. I'm like, it doesn't give me a free pass to give them a cruddy pitch. It's got to be something worthwhile.
Right. There's that misconception that you can just call Bob at Forbes and say, like, I've got a story for you, and he's going to publish it, whether he likes it or not, whether his editor likes it or not, whether it's a fit for Forbes, if Forbes readers will like it. Like, yeah.
Absolutely. And I have a running joke. I'm going to have lunch later today, a late lunch today with a longtime client. And we have this running joke because when I started my own agency almost 12 years ago, he was one of my first year. He's one of my first clients. And I was so concerned though that he understood that the only way I could guarantee him publication or a broadcast is if I own the newspaper or the TV station or the website.
Right.
It's the only guarantee you can, or you buy an ad. Okay.
Right.
And I think I overdid it because to this day, when he called me, he says, hey, I want to go to lunch and talk about our latest project. And I said, I'll be there. Just tell me what time. He says, but can you guarantee it? And he just meant, can you guarantee you'll go to lunch? And he does that to me every darn time. But he's a friend too now, and it's kind of great. But that's the thing, though. I think, Brittany, I'd like to just hit on every time we talk about media pitching and about interactions with the news media is even your most seasoned, even your most connected PR person, sometimes you just can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, or timing is wrong for things, right? Can you talk us to a little bit about timing?
You just have to have the right pitch for the right person at the right time. Like that example I gave you earlier of the guest piece or interview with a psychotherapist about the psychological impact of the COVID holidays. I had the right pitch at the right time for the right person, and that got in the New York Times. But I've never, ever gotten another story for another client in the New York Times. But I had the right story for the right person right when they were working on a story about COVID and its psychological impact. Sometimes it just comes down to the luck of being in the right place at the right time.
It's true, and that's part of that whole thing about guarantees and things. And I want to talk to you in a minute about newswires, but before we get there, can I bounce something off of you that just happened to me recently with one of my clients? Is that
Sure.
okay? I'm going to lay on the couch here. This is my therapy session with Brittany. She's going to kind of listen to my problem and diagnose me. No, but seriously, Brittany, I had a new client, and I'll just keep this very innocuous so people can't guess if anybody wanted to. I don't want to embarrass the client because the client has no reason to be embarrassed, but I don't want to violate their privacy on this. But anyway, it was a local client with a regional business. They were fourth generation family of what they do. They're doing a really cool innovation. And I'm not talking about just having a cool website or whatever, or anything like that, but they had a really cool innovation that actually would and will, I think, and they think, change the way business is done in their sector, at least here in this area. Well, my thought was, this is clearly a business journal type story, okay? We have Kansas City Business Journal, but there's business journals all over the country, yeah. Okay, not the New York Times, but very well respected and received publications. Well, I know people there. I created a pitch that I actually handcrafted with the client, more so than I normally do, because they had never worked with a PR person before, and I wanted them to understand the difference between a press release and a pitch, and I wanted to try to walk it through because they were very, please explain to us what you're going to do. I normally don't like to get too much into process because, frankly, you don't need to know how the sausage is made. I've got a track record. Let me go do my business. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and educate, right? But I'm going to educate them a little because it'll help me if I educate them properly, where they won't be asking a lot of weird questions or being freaked out about things that are normal. Okay, there we got that set up. Good news is I made the pitch and within 2 hours had a response. Gosh, yeah, would love to know more. Can you get me an interview with the persons involved here? Yeah, 2 hours. That's wow. Talk about your timing and all that. So I set up an interview. I prepped the client. We do a kind of a mock interview with him just to make sure because he was nervous. And I let him go. I didn't sit in on the interview. I don't do that very often. I find that I think it irritates reporters, and I don't do it very often unless it's a crisis. Yeah, I'll do it during crisis. Most reporters understand if it's a crisis, I'm going to sit in. But anyway, the client calls me back at the day of the interview. He calls me about 2 hours later. He says, "My gosh, he interviewed me for like almost an hour and a half." Oh. And I said, well, that could be very good or very bad. I didn't say that to him. It's like, it wasn't like pulling teeth to get stuff or what. But I said, tell me what he asked. And he said, well, he just actually went point by point through everything in the press release and just wanted me to expand on that. I said, oh, well, that's good. Okay, good. He's looking for good, juicy quotes. Is that what he's doing, Brittany? That's what I think he's doing.
That's
he's looking
what it sounds like.
Yeah. So I said, well, good job. Pat yourself in the back. Go have a cocktail, whatever, this Friday or something. Go have a cocktail. I'll talk to you. We'll keep an eye on it. And it's a weekly pub. And, of course, they do some daily stuff on the website. But it sounded to me like he was really gunning for a real printed story that might be a feature. So I let it go. Nothing the first week, nothing the second week. And then I'm starting to go, So middle of the third week waiting, I pinged the guy, the reporter, and then he says, yeah, I decided I didn't want to use it. I'll save some of this for maybe a bigger story down the road. So anyway, that's the way it goes. He didn't say that's the way it goes. He said, anyway, that was it. Anyway. Ever happened to you?
I've had things like that happen. It's inexplicable. Like everything can go great and then they don't run the story or
like maybe they run up against their editor who looks at it and just says, no, too puff piece, or maybe too much like a commercial. I've heard that. But I've rarely had them do such an in-depth interview and then just scotch the story. And that was very difficult to explain.
I've never had them go to that extent and then not ran the story.
Yeah. And this is where it would have been handy had I sat in just so I could kind of get a feel for it. But again, I don't do that. Just like you said, you don't like to do that either. But I guess we'll never know. But I told the client this. I said, look, here's the thing. Here's what you did get out of it. Okay. First of all, we have a story and we could send it to other publications. And that's what I did. I started pitching other publications. Anyway, we don't have to go into that. But I did that. I said, ultimately, that you've got something really nice SEO piece for your company blog on your website. Put that on there. And I said, also, you're on the radar with this reporter now, and you weren't before. And he's going to keep you in mind as a source for what you do. And I said, you might find that it's going to sneak up on you in about 3 to 6 months. You're going to call out of the blue. You're going to get a call from him saying, hey, remember we had this thing, blah, blah. I've got a new story. Like to get your opinion. Right?
Right. Did that happen?
Not yet, but it's only been a couple of months. So excuse me, but it's fresh on my mind because I don't know about you, but I don't like hitting doubles and triples. I like home runs for my client. And man, when you can just sniff the home plate, when you just think you're right there, and then to get tagged out at third, it just kind of sucks. But okay, well, anyway, I always like to run that by folks like yourself and just say, can you see anywhere we might have gone wrong? But it sounds like it's just not really on us.
Wrong.
Okay. All right, good. Okay, good. Well, let's talk a little bit then about that relationship. I'd like to know, in particular, for the folks out there, even if they're not PR people, a lot of small business people and entrepreneurs and people who listen to the show, they ask me occasionally about a good newswire to use. Because I always tell them too. I don't know about you, Brittany, but sometimes I get a call and it's just like, I might help them craft a press release, but I don't typically like to just do one-offs very often because I like to help them with their whole strategy, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But I often say to them, just go ahead and, let me look at it. Well, if it looks good, then go put it on a newswire. And they always ask me which one. Well, there's several out there. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So I do. So there's a lot of very expensive newswires out there. And you can spend $750 plus for a newswire.
Ooh.
And you can also have them say you only have 400 words and charge you more if you go over the 400 words on that same newswire, and also get charged for an image. So I actually really like, and there's some that are only in the like 300s range, but I actually really like AB Newswire. To be honest, it's only $40, and I get better results from it than from other more expensive newswires. The reports I pull from it are amazing.
Huh. She can see me, folks. I'm looking it up right now. I'm embarrassed to tell you, I've never heard of AB Newswire. Huh.
I'll send you a sample report. They do a great job.
Wow, $40? Are you kidding me?
I'm not. It's $500 for the year.
Man, that is great. Thank you. Yeah, send me a report if you would. It's funny. We had a guest on who recently on the show, and he is the proprietor of ereleases.com, which does a pretty good job too, from what I understand. And he's a little cheaper, but it's just interesting. Gosh, I am always up for something that's really. Well, saying budget makes it sound like it's not good, but obviously you think it's good.
I think it's good.
And I deal with a lot of small to mid-sized companies, and yeah, I mean, and here's the deal. I could offer them that kind of deal. I'm sure this might be the way you work it, or a lot of people do, is you're going to upcharge, you're going to do the service, you're going to upcharge them for putting it together and doing it. And even with your upcharge, it's going to really come out really cheaply, I think.
Right. It comes out very inexpensively.
I like that. I like that a lot. Okay. All right. I'm going to have, please do put me down to look at one of your samples. I'd love to see that.
I will.
So Brittany, there's another thing I think we should cover while we got you here, and strangely enough, because we're on a podcast, maybe we should talk about podcasting a little bit.
Okay.
I don't know about you, but when I don't at this moment need to look for guests right now, and it's not because my show is so incredible, although I think it's very nice. It's because I'm a founding member of Matchmaker FM, and I was just wondering, do you use Matchmaker to book guests or to book yourself,
yes.
or how do you do it? Tell us all about it.
Yes, I do use Matchmaker.fm to book guests. I've been using that for close to a year now, and that is the best way I've found to book podcast guests. I have 2 other great sources of podcasts, but I don't know if you want me to mention them.
You can say whoever you want.
Okay. Podmatch is one I've just started using.
Me too.
And clients have been liking it. I've just started using it, and I've been seeing some success with it. And then radioguestlist.com always sends emails with leads for radio shows and podcasts.
That's helpful for the radio shows in particular, because that's an area I don't think Matchmaker does anything with, or I don't know if the other one does either. I just started Podmatch too, and we had Alex Sanfilippo on this show last year who started one of these. I don't know if it was Podmatch, but he started one of these too, and it might be Podmatch, I don't know. And I just never jumped on it until recently. He reminded me. He was like, "Hey, come on, man. Go try it. You can try it for free," and it's really great. But I will warn you, podcast hosts out there, if you get on Matchmaker and you set up a decent profile as a show, you will very likely be inundated. Now, I have two shows. I have the PR After Hours show, Brittany, and that's what you see is what you get here with that. It's business related, PR marketing, and
Right.
general business. And then I have something called Mysterious Goings On, which is about creativity, leans heavily on writers, and I interview writers constantly. That show is primarily fed. What's that?
That's interesting.
Oh, thank you. I've been doing that one since 2016. It's my labor of love because I write on the side. But that show has been lately taken over by to book people. Publicists have found it, and people like you and me, but book publicists. And I'm booked to the end of the year on that one just by publicists alone.
Wow.
So I have frozen my matchmaker. You know how you can freeze they can freeze profiles,
Right.
say this. I've had to, and I've actually had to do it here for PR After Hours because I'm just inundated with great guests. Don't get me wrong, like yourself, but I don't have any more time. I'm averaging 2 interviews a week, and I'm booked all the way through January 2022. So
That's
be
amazing.
careful. Yeah, well, yeah. Be careful what you wish for, folks. Because I was like, when I started PR After Hours, I was like, man, I can't just be me giving tips out every week. I got to get people involved in them.
Right.
Boom. So, are you booking yourself using one of those too as a guest, or how's that work?
I'm booking myself using Matchmaker.fm. I get a little nervous doing podcasts and stuff like that, so I don't aggressively pursue it too much. Sometimes I start feeling like the shoemaker that doesn't have shoes and say, "Oh, I need to do my own PR," and so I'll book a podcast or something like that. So yes, I do use it for myself, but not as much as I should.
You sound like me.
Okay.
Obviously, I have no trouble getting on them or anything like that. But I found since I'm interviewing folks 2 days a week, half the day or all day, depending on the day. So I get plenty of talk time in, obviously, and I get to meet wonderful people. And then when I just yesterday I interviewed a really wonderful guest, and he has a little podcast of his own. He says, "Can I get you on there? I'd love to." And that's happened to me over and over. And that's the point where I am right now. It's like, okay, if that one of these relationships works and they invite me, that's what I'm going to do. But I very rarely go pitch myself to be on the shows simply because I feel like that portion of my week is taken up with client work and with these podcasts. And I feel like business development, that's it. But I will confess too, though, that it's awkward for me because I'm in charge having my shows, right? And then I get to be the guest, and then I feel like, oh my gosh, I got to be careful here. I'm not running this interview. I need to quit acting like the host. So anyway, but that's silly. But I think those are great suggestions, Brittany. Is there? And this is just kind of out of left field, though. One last kind of general question. Then I want to ask you some specific questions about what you offer your clients. But
Okay.
has there been in the 10 plus years you've been involved in public relations, has there been a shift, in your opinion, in reporters' attitudes about pitches in general? Have you noticed a sea change? Is it trend based? Is it seasonal based? What do you think?
I think there have always been some grumpy reporters, and there are still some grumpy reporters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's more grumpy people than there used to be or anything like that. Most of them are still very nice and very lovely to work with. I don't think there's been a huge change, really.
Do you think that it's just? I think if I were answering that question, I would say that the change has just really been more about technology and how they receive pitches, but not necessarily on how they manage them.
I do not believe it's a best practice to call anyone on the phone. I think that reporters have enough stresses on their time that I don't think that they want you calling them. You don't like to be called about your car warranty. I don't think they.
True.
I think for them it's the same as getting called about their car warranty. So I don't think it's a good idea to call them.
Well, the worst thing you can do is call and say, "Did you get my press release?" Oh,
Right.
They hate that. They really do. And that's a message to all you out there who are going to use AB or one of these services, or you're just going to maybe get into your local media. It's really not a great idea to do that because they are so busy. And sometimes I've had clients say, "Oh, well, I'm busy too, but you know what? I answer my phone." I'm like, I understand this, but if you understood the sheer volume contacts that are attempted to make on the average reporter's day and the demands on their time. And how about this? Just sitting down to actually write something. I mean, to get time to do that, which a lot of folks need a lot of concentration. So, Brittany, I totally agree with you. Well, let's talk a little bit more though about at-large PR. Let's hear the services you specialize in. We obviously know you do media relations. What else do you offer?
Sure. The main thing we offer is media relations, and we do monthly packages like most PR companies do, and we offer it on a month-to-month basis, where people can cancel at the end of every month, and we have to earn your business every month. And we also offer one-time press releases or pitches, which is a little different than most people do, and that's the core of our business. We offer some other services like media training through vendors. Like, I'm not a media trainer because I don't consider myself an expert interviewee by any means. Like someone who's nervous to do podcast interviews shouldn't be the person training.
You're doing great. You really are.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. So I have someone else handle that kind of thing. The other service that we offer that is maybe a little different is we ghostwrite books.
Oh, really? Say more about that.
Sure. So I have a team of ghostwriters. I used to ghostwrite the books myself, but now I have a team of ghostwriters, and they talk to the client. Most clients do it over the phone and do a series of interviews, and the ghostwriter, they'll download their brain to the ghostwriter for an hour to 2 hours for the first call and give them kind of an overview of the book, their whole vision for it. If it's a nonfiction book, maybe an overview of each chapter and what's going to be in it. If it's a fiction book, maybe like about the characters and their motivations and an overview of the plot. And then the ghostwriter will take and write questions, and then they'll do phone interviews, and the person gets interviewed, and then the ghostwriter writes their chapter, sends it to them for approval, and then writes their next chapter, sends it to them for approval, and at the end of the day, they have a book.
That's fantastic. That is hard work. And for people who aren't writers and want a book, that's just an essential service. But it's such hard work. I've done some ghostwriting myself, and actually was approached recently to write a business book, and I just like, because it's pretty labor intensive. But I guess you guys have got it down to a science. So
it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, that sounds cool. So we're talking. So the month-to-month pitching services, your general PR. Yeah, I do a lot of the things too that you're talking about, where I'll consult, but I have some vendors who do other things for me. But I'm also a vendor for a lot of companies. A lot of PR firms call me because we do crisis communication planning and services, and they bring me in and work with the client to get it. I don't mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, well, I don't know when I'm going to have a crisis." No, I always say you're missing that final word there. Planning. I'm going to help you plan. We're going to write a plan. They're like, "Oh, why do I need a plan?" And I say, "Well, why do you have car insurance?" That's why you need a plan. Yeah, so we do that. So it's good. I think I was going to say, though, it's good that, I think that's one reason you guys are successful at large, is because you've identified the niches that you want to, work in. And it sounds like you're doing great.
Thank you. Yes, I do not have the personality for crisis communications. My anxiety level would be like here. That's its own world, and it takes a special personality.
Well, I will tell you now, and what I've been doing, I have been getting away from managing active crisis. Like I get calls, because people, they see crisis, the SEO, my location, there it comes. And I have to explain to them, I have people I work with who are active crisis. Like I could call this person now and she will be there in an hour and she will take charge. But I'm with you now. The older I get, not that you're old, but me, the older I get, the less I need that stress. And And I, when you're younger, when I was younger, I lived for it. I was like, oh, this is excitement. Let's go. But life's too short. I don't want to do that. So I'll do that occasionally. But yeah, I just love the planning because I've got the experience on the front line, and I just enjoy that. So if you ever, just saying I'm not making a commercial, well, yeah, I am. I'm making a commercial. If any of you PR people listening out there, you need crisis planning services, give me a call. But I think if you need to speak with somebody about month-to-month pitching services, you should give Brittany Bearden a call. Brittany, because you know what? That's one last thing I want to ask you is, what if I got a tough nut to crack and I'm just like, I don't feel up to it? Will you vend or will you contract with another PR person or PR firm?
Absolutely.
That's good. That's good to know. That's very good to know. So, folks, keep that in mind too. Well, Brittany, how do people get a hold of you to learn more?
Sure. The best way to reach me is by email
Okay.
at Britt, @largepr.com,
Great.
ATLARGEPR.com.
Okay.
Or
And the website is
the
at
website
large.
is www.atlargepr.com.
I love the site, folks. I looked at it. Core principles: integrity, expertise, value, adaptability, reliability, respect, self-improvement, and systemic. These are some great principles. Brittany Bearden, I have really enjoyed meeting you, and I learned so much in this little brief moment we had together. So thank you. I'm going to check out that press release service, but do please send me one of those sample reports. I'm dying to see what that looks like.
Absolutely.
Well, again, Brittany, thanks so much for joining us here in the virtual lounge today.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you know what that means? Looks like it's last call here at your virtual lounge for PR news, views, and interviews. Don't forget, you can ask me a question anytime. You can do it through our Twitter account, which is @HoursPR, or even better, you can send me a message vocally. I would love to hear your voice, and I'll answer it on the show. There's a link in the show notes. All you have to do is sign up through Anchor FM. It's free, doesn't take long. And you record your message, I get the message, I will play your audio, just give me your first name and the city you live in, and then I will answer the question to the best of my ability right here on the show. Don't forget to, if you're enjoying this podcast, you can support it and help increase the frequency and value of the show. Just consider being a sponsor for your brand or your agency or just yourself because you're like, I like this show. Or just drop a few coins in the virtual tip jar. Either way, there's links in the show notes. Please check that out. All of that, of course, being in the show notes where you're listening right now or at prafterhours.com. I see that they're turning up the lights. Last call is over, and I've got to clean up this virtual lounge. And until next time, I'm Alex Greenwood, and you've been listening to PR After Hours on Anchor FM.